So I really don't like it when people mock Trump for dodging the draft in Vietnam or making fun of his bone spurs. And that's something that I'm talking about in this video. Now, this is something that I'm seeing a lot because of this story, where Trump apparently called dead soldiers losers and suckers. Now, let me just say, first of all, if he really said that, that's awful and that's terrible. And I'm 100% not defending him. So this video is not really about Trump and that story, but it's in general. A lot of times I see people kind of calling him out for being a draft dodger and for his bone spurs. And dodging the draft is a really messed up thing to make fun of somebody for, because there's nothing wrong with a 21-year-old being afraid of dying. And I will say it does annoy me a little bit more when a woman says it, because obviously women were exempt from the draft. But it annoys me when anybody says it, because think about what dying actually is. It's being dead forever. And it was something that happened to kids. I mean, 61% of US soldiers who died in Vietnam were under the age of 21, or no, 21 or younger. So under the age of 22. And 11,000 were under the age of 20. So teenagers. I mean, think about how young that is. I mean, I'm 26 now. So when I think about that, an 18-year-old being drafted and sent to die against their will, I mean, that's absolutely insane. But that happened. And that happened recently. I mean, that happened 50 years ago. So I think to mock someone because they don't want to be sent overseas to die at age 20 or 21 is a really messed up thing to do. And to that point, I don't think that men have gotten enough credit. And I don't want to use the word credit because that's not quite right, but not really enough acknowledgement for just what the draft is and was and dying in a war. When you talk about like inequality and gender inequality, I'll hear feminists say things like, oh, women couldn't even get full credit at the bank until 1973. That's true, and that's not right, and that's a bad thing, and it shouldn't have been like that. But 20-year-old boys were being sent to die against their will in 1973. And I bet you if you could bring any one of them back from the dead and say, well, listen, either you can stay dead, but you can still get credit, or you can come back to life and you can't get credit. That's a pretty easy decision to make. So that to me is something I don't like seeing used to mock someone or insult someone, because I would 100% dodge any draft. If I'm forced to die against my will, I don't think so. And the vast majority of you watching right now, I guarantee you, would say exactly the same thing. And again, just to repeat, if Trump really did make those statements insulting those soldiers, then that is absolutely awful. And there is no defending it and no excuse for it.
And just one more last thing. And by the way, if you see how suddenly dark it is, 45 seconds, that's how fast it takes for a thunderstorm in Florida to turn the sky completely black. Maybe you can hear the rain. But one more point. I actually think you can say that calling Trump a draft dodger and mocking him for that in the election is a sexist thing to say. Because remember, someone like Hillary Clinton or Ruth Bader Ginsburg would have been exempt from the draft, and it's not something that they would have had to deal with. So I think attacking a male politician for being a draft dodger could be considered a sexist insult and a sexist attack.